It is that time again. Our sponsor, of course, gas station soda pops. Is it soda where you live? Is it pop? Or do you call everything a Coke? In Oklahoma, where I grew up, everything was a Coke. You didn't call it soda. I don't think you call everything was a Coke. It's like you go out with your friends. Let's go get a Coke. Okay, we'll go get a Coke. What kind of Coke do you want? I'll have a Dr. Pepper. Okay. Didn't make sense, but that's just the way it was. So where you live, is it soda? Is it pop? Is it generic Coke for everything? It's crazy. John Bon Jovi addressed his recent vocal issues. I wasn't aware that he had vocal issues. Let me just say, compared to other artists, I'm impressed by his self-awareness, because there's other artists with vocal issues that they don't care. I'm in a tour completely unable to sing or even formulate an understandable sentence, but I'm going to keep touring. John Bon Jovi, not that way. Listen to this. He addressed his recent vocal issues and mused on the touring future of Bon Jovi at this week's Polestar Live conference, where he received the Milestone Award for his band's 40th anniversary. Quote, "It's become public knowledge now that I've had major reconstructive surgery in my vocal cords, and I never had anything like this, ever," the frontman said during the keynote Q&A. Continued the quote, "So it's been a difficult road, but I found a doctor in Philadelphia who did something called a medialization, because one of my cords was literally atrophied." So they have this procedure, and other artists have had it, where they go in and can fix your vocal cords. Sometimes people get nodules. That's pretty commonplace. Sometimes deviated septums, and things that they've done take their toll on the cords, meaning that, I mean, let's just be honest. Some rock and roll musicians don't take the best care of themselves, and they might ingest things in their body that are not healthy. I think that's what he's referring to. So where was I at? Sometimes deviated septums and things that they've done take their toll on the cords. The only thing that's ever been up my nose has been my finger. So it was very difficult this last decade to have to contend with something that was out of my control. Stevie Nicks did so much coke in the 70s that the inside of her nose was like completely burned out. Had to have that completely redone. Just throwing that out there. That's kind of what he's referring to. And his vocals were the subject of criticism and speculation on the band's 2022 tour. And an upcoming Hulu docuseries titled "Thank You, Good Night," the Bon Jovi story, cast further doubt on the band's future. I wasn't aware of this. I completely missed any talk of his vocal problems, probably because I saw so much Vince Neil vocal problem stuff. And I feel bad saying this, but one of the funniest things is to go out to YouTube, and now it's become its own little genre on YouTube. People putting together the collages of Vince Neil singing, and then they put the transcribe what it sounds like he's saying, which of course is nowhere near what he's trying to say. That's always good for a laugh, but it's sad. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. But John Bon Jovi has had these same issues. But here's the difference between how Bon Jovi's handled it and Vince has handled it. John Bon Jovi says, "Hey, if I can't sing and sound good, I'm out. I'm done." Kind of refreshing, got to say. Marillion. Guys, help me with Marillion, because I got to be honest. Marillion is a band way more popular in Europe than in the U.S. What I've heard from Marillion, I like, but I've never taken the time to really dig in to Marillion. So I'm asking for you to suggest what are some great Marillion albums I should check out? I'd love to know, because I think this is a band I might want to dig into a little more. But Marillion bassist Pete Trewavas Trewavis? Pete Trewavis has sent fans a message from his hospital bed where he is awaiting to undergo a, quote, routine surgical procedure, end quote. It's a sign of the times, guys. Our lead story today was about vocal reconstructive surgery. Now we've got a bass player, Marillion, who's having surgery. More and more, the classic rock updates is about medical issues. It sucks to get old. But he sends out an email to his fans. He says, "Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say how blown away I have been by all your messages of kindness and support and people posting get well or speedy recovery. I'm currently resting up in the hospital, awaiting my surgical procedure. I feel pretty good about the whole situation as I have a great surgical team around me and a treatment plan." And he goes on to thank Nick Beggs, who will be filling in for him on this upcoming Cruise to the Edge. And this is the thing, guys. I think it would be fun. There's Cruise to the Edge. There's the Monsters of Rock cruise. That's kind of a thing going on now, is all of us old geezers can go on a cruise where we see all of our aging, fresh out of surgery rock bands perform on a cruise. What's not to like? They are spendy, though. They are spendy. So whether it's the Monsters of Rock cruise or the Cruise to the Edge tour, I think those would be fun. And I'm making an admission. I've never been on a cruise. Never been on a cruise. I have 7 kids. Did I tell you I have 7 kids? Makes it kind of hard to go on a cruise. Only 3 of them are left at home. But I've just never done a cruise. And I would love to I might do an Alaska cruise this summer with my kids, with some of my older kids. We'll wait and see. But I think a classic rock cruise would be fun. But Marillion's bassist, Pete, in the hospital, but his bass duties covered by Nick Beggs for the upcoming Cruise to the Edge. In a recent interview, this is from our favorite bands fighting category. In a recent interview with the Hook Rocks podcast, Jeff Pilson was asked if there's a chance of a reunion of Dokken's classic lineup, making a new album or even performing. Well, this is interesting and a timely question, as the past few weeks, and I haven't really talked about it just because, you get legal wrangling fatigue, right? And at some point, you just can't cover all the legal wrangling because this would become a legal podcast. I'd be like that, I don't know, one of those attorneys that has the radio shows that all you're talking about is how can I sue my neighbor and that sort of thing. We don't want that. But there's been back and forth. Don Dokken saying that, he shouldn't have shared writing credits on songs. He lost millions because he did that. Famously, Don and George never got along. They still don't get along. And yet, Jeff Pilson has not given up hope. Jeff Pilson's super busy, by the way. He's in Foreigner, right? He tours with Foreigner. He's been in Foreigner for like 20 years now, or 15 years. He, of course, was the bass player in Dokken, actually the best singer in Dokken. Now, especially. But he was asked, hey, will you guys ever get back together? Jeff says, yeah, I kind of detach from it. I know Don and George have done shows together, and I don't think there's going to be a whole lot more of those for some reason. But I don't think it's animosity, really. It's not that. It's just, Don has his record. He's talking about the new Dokken record, Heaven Comes Down. And he wants to promote that. And I think Don wants to retire soon. He's 70. And his vote, he can't sing. When I say that, I don't mean in the sense of Vince, what's his name? Vince Neil. Don Dokken has just lost the range. The range that Don has, he can still hit a note. He's still understandable. He's still got a good voice. Vince Neil's Vince Neil is like a bad Carol Channing. It's bad. Okay. My attitude is I leave the door open only because there is a part of me, I will be honest, that would love to do one last Dokken record and really do it right. But the logistics of that, I recognize, are very difficult. Don lives in New Mexico now. I can't see either one of us traveling to work together long enough to collaborate. And my interest would be in us collaborating to do it. But having said that, who knows? I mean, I know that if George and I got in a room to write a Dokken record musically, that we would have no problem with that. And I think George kind of feels the same way. If it can happen, great. But it looks logistically difficult. And if it doesn't happen, I'm not disappointed either. But like I say, I would love to do one last record. If we did shows, that'd be great. But it just doesn't seem like it's on the plate. So my answer is I'm open, but I don't see it happening. So we'll see. So there you go. Pilson and Lynch stay busy. I mean, Pilson, like I said, he produces stuff. He's in Revolution Saints now, isn't he? Revolution Saints, by the way, if you haven't, I think they're on album 4. It's Dean Castronovo's vehicle, right? Dean Castronovo, drummer, currently touring with Journey, great drummer and great singer. I mean, he sounds more like Steve Perry now than Steve Perry does. The first Revolution Saints is like Journey on steroids. It's a great album. It had Doug Aldrich and Jack Blades. It's phenomenal. The first 2 albums. So who's in Doug Aldrich? Yeah, Doug Aldrich was in it. And then I can't remember. They kind of have Dean's the constant, but he surrounds himself with these great musicians. Pilson's in it now. And who's the guitar player? His name escapes me. Joel Hoekstra, I think. So I think right now it's Dean, Joel Hoekstra, and Jeff Pilson. And it's awesome. So check out Revolution Saints. Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah, that Pilson and George are still busy. In fact, Pilson and George work together on In Machine. I think they're both in Machine, which is a great new rock band as well. Again, it's the frontier music thing that I always talk about. There's tons of great music getting produced. You just never hear about it. It's not going to get played anywhere. And Frontiers doesn't do a great job of promoting it, so you wouldn't even know. You got to go digging for it. But I don't know. It would be cool to do one last Dokken thing. But Don, to Jeff's point, he's 70, and his voice is nowhere near what it used to be, and he just doesn't look like he enjoys it. You know, at least I make fun of Vince Neil, but at least Vince looks like he's having fun. Don doesn't look like he's having fun. But you can still see George playing around, doing things, Lynch Mob stuff. Pilson's busy. Let's do some emails. Speaking, this lines up perfectly for this first email that we have. ClassicGuitarRock@mail.com is the email address. ClassicGuitarRock. What is it? ClassicGuitarRock@mail.com. And it's MAIL.com. If you type in MALE, that's totally different. You don't want that. You want ClassicGuitarRock@mail.com. It comes straight to me. Classic Guitar Rock. I follow you on Twitter. Still can't call it X. Me neither. And enjoy the daily updates. Also love the podcast. Like you, I love classic rock. But I think there's a lot of new music that crusty old classic rock fans like us would enjoy. Would you consider dedicating more time and space to spotlighting new music that classic rock fans would like? Just my 2 cents worth. Thanks, Jerry P. Jerry, thank you. And I just mentioned Revolution Saints, right? The other day I mentioned Wings of Steel. You're right. So maybe we could have a spotlight. I don't know if we could do it on every daily update, but I like that idea because to your point, and what I kind of just said is there is good new music coming out. Whether it's classic rock era artists, the aging guys that are putting out new music, or it's younger bands that are playing in the vein of classic rock, melodic hard rock, whatever you want to call it, like Wings of Steel. Totally. I think that's an excellent idea. So maybe we should put some structure around that and have a new artist spotlight or new music spot. I love that idea. The problem, the challenge is the time to to research it out. So I would enlist everyone's help. I would love it if people would email me or even comment in on YouTube or Facebook or on Twitter. Hey, Jeremy, check out this band or check out this new music from so and so. I would love that. And then we could talk about it. I love that idea. I think it's a great idea. Put a little more structure because there is great music coming out that will never get played on the radio. Radio sucks, right? It will never get played on the radio. So we got to kind of promote it and share it. I love that idea. So Jerry P, thank you so much for the email. Here's another one. CGR. Oh, this is going to piss people off. Okay. CGR, I know you are a big Rush fan. It is true. I love Rush. I've heard you mention that a lot. LOL. Yes. But you don't seem like a big fan of their later material. Personally, I love their whole catalog and I consider Clockwork Angels one of their very best. I would love to hear your thoughts on the later material. Keep rocking, Doug Mason. Doug Mason, thank you so much. You're right. By the way, Marlon chiming in, he says, awesome shirt. And look at that. Marlon's profile pic is Michael Schenker Group's Assault Attack, and I happen to be wearing a Michael Schenker Group shirt today. Thank you, Marlon. Love Michael Schenker, the Mad Axe Man. Love that guy. I could spend an hour talking about Rush. And probably if I have to break down the most important bands to me personally, Rush would probably be the number one band. They'd probably be at the top of that list. I think the run from 2112 through Moving Pictures, that's 5 albums. Is that 5 albums? I think that's 5 albums. That is the greatest consecutive run of 5 albums ever in the history of music, bar none. 2112, Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres, Permanent Waves, Moving Pictures. Flawless, not a bad track, phenomenal run of albums. The greatest ever. So I'm just throwing that out there so you know how passionate I am about Rush. I love Rush. I did not leave Rush. They left me. Okay? I hung in, bought every single album up through Presto. Okay? And I didn't have a problem with them. There's something to like on all of those albums up through Presto. There's something to like on all of their albums. But I bought Roll the Bones. Roll the Bones was the one that I just thought, this is getting too processed cheese for me. Too slick, keyboard driven. There's a rap section on a song. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, they left me. Doesn't mean I don't. And over the years, there have been songs, and I've heard all the albums, right? I've heard everything. It's just, it's not the same for me. Okay. And I'm not blaming them. Bands change. They don't want to do the same thing over and over, and Rush consistently was, they had their bathrobe phase, right? They had their skinny tie phase in the early 80s. It was just, I get that. Bands want to change. They want to do things different. They get older. They don't want to sound like Led Zeppelin anymore. Whatever. I understand all that. And I love Rush. I felt a huge loss when Neil Peart died because he, there are songs that are part of my inner dialogue. Entre Nous off Permanent Waves. I mean, that's a song that has just bounced around my head forever. Free Will. I mean, so many of the lyrics that they were a huge part. But yeah, I did kind of drift away from like Roll the Bones on. And Bruce K chimes in, Getty is the rap voice, and that is true. That is Getty is doing. doing the rap part. So I love Rush, and I don't think anyone should be sad if you kind of drift away from your, because things change. My tastes change, or maybe they didn't change. Maybe that was the problem for whatever reason. The first up through about 1990, I'm in all the way with Rush. Love them. Have every album. Have a few of the albums after that, but to be honest, don't really listen to them much. And yes, I've heard the occasional song from a later album. That's a pretty good song. It was different, right? It changed. And I can say the same thing about Priest. I was a huge Judas Priest fan, but they lost me with Turbo Lover and Ram It Down. I did just, not to say there isn't some good stuff in there, but it is what it is. I love Rush, huge Rush fan. They went in a direction that I just wasn't as excited about, which good for them. I mean, I don't get to decide what they play, right? Thank you so much for your email, though, Doug. Love Rush. Love the classic Rush. Oh, no. Here's one more. Hey, Jeremy and JR, still waiting for a podcast episode about Jethro Tull. Signed, waiting. I have been remiss in doing updating the actual podcast, and that's what created all this. I've been focusing more time on the daily updates and that sort of thing, and the Twitter channel. But you're right. I have been remiss in even updating regular podcasts. And, it's almost like I have two separate audiences, right? I've got folks that only listen to the podcast, right? And the podcast is doing pretty good, but I haven't put out an episode in like over a month. It's ridiculous. And then I have a slowly but surely growing audience of like the daily update and what I do on Twitter. And that's great too. By the way, please check out both. If you just are watching the update, that's great, but check out the podcast as well. In the podcast, we go more in depth, usually on specific albums or groups. But please check out all of those things. And another thing, while I'm talking about this, I'll just plug this. For $1 a month, okay, $1, one thin dollar, you can be a subscriber on X, on Twitter. It's $1 a month. If you're already following me on Twitter, you'll notice there's a little button that says subscribe. It's $1 a month. You wouldn't even notice. And, that just helps us with the costs. And there is costs associated with making a podcast. You got to upgrade equipment. My little thing on my microphone broke here. I had to order something out here. I'm just, whining at this point, but it's $1 a month. You don't even notice you don't even notice $1, right? But, I notice it. I notice $1 a month from several people, right? And that adds up. So if you have $1 a month in your budget and like what we're doing here, by all means, please subscribe on Twitter. That would be wonderful. Even on Spotify, I think you can donate $1 or whatever, however you want to do it. I mean, if you're able to do that, we sure appreciate it. People don't do podcasts to make money, by the way. I mean, Joe Rogan makes money, but most people that have a podcast don't make money. So it's really about recouping the costs that you're sinking into making the podcast. That's really what it's about. But if you're able to help by subscribing for just $1 a month, that would be awesome. We'd sure appreciate it. And please, even more importantly, I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, classicguitarrock@mail.com. Guys, have a great weekend. We'll do it all again next week. Thanks so much. Live long and prosper. Bye-bye.